Hey guys, and welcome to my series. That's not really a series, I did it once. Being a football week recap, I guess. I called it weekly, but it's really not weekly. I'm going to try to do it weekly, but sometimes I just can't record, don't feel like recording. I'm just going to do it when I feel like doing it. And I wonder why my channel isn't growing a lot. But anyway, that's besides the point. So this is a series where I have a couple segments. We do the power rankings of the week, and I think I'm going to switch it up. I'm probably only going to mention the Super Bowl contenders and have my, just mention all the Super Bowl contenders and rank them like that. And then I'll go into my top storylines of the week. And then we'll finish it off, or I'm not sure the order it's going to be, but we'll do my bets of the week. And I like doing it later in the week because, well, if you do it too early in the week, things change. A player gets injured, and my opinions completely change. And then it just sucks because, the Rams just got Ramsey, and I'm going to talk about that in my first segment. So without further ado, let's just begin, and let's get this show started. Okay, so starting off with my top storylines of the week. My first storyline is a trade deadline. Which players should go? Jalen Ramsey got traded to the Rams. I was wondering why Marcus Peters left. So he basically traded a cornerback for another cornerback. We've seen cornerback trades not really work out in the past. You had Josh Norman. That didn't really work out. Landon Collins, it wasn't really a trade, but signing big free agents with cornerbacks doesn't really work out because they eventually get figured out. They go to teams, they become less hungry. They get old. Cornerbacks have to be relying on the speed. The only ones that have really worked out, you could say Richard Sherman, but that's been hot and cold. But I'm going to mention 3 different trades that can happen, and one's a group of trades, so that's going to be interesting. So number 1, Trent Williams rumors were starting to brew around yesterday. And teams that are going to need a left tackle, the Chargers, Okung, he has this pulmonary thing that I have no idea, I never heard of it. And he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure what his status is. They're also missing their center, so they're really weak on offensive line. I don't think they blow it all up. I'm not sure if they do. They have a young quarterback in Easton Stick who they've drafted. I'm not sure what their complete plans are, if they're planning on going for it this year, especially in this division. But, the Oakland Raiders, the Chiefs, you can try to make a little bit of a run. You're still 2-4, and you do have to play your division a lot. So if you can win those games, you're right back in it. I think the Chargers can look for a left tackle like Trent Williams. Then you also have the Bears who, they're pretty weak on offensive line. You need to give Mitch Trubisky his left tackle for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Trent Williams is 31 years old, but I think he can be a steady figure. I know there's a lot of left tackles haven't worked out, like with Nate Soldier for the Giants. So a lot of them haven't worked out because offensive line is more of a unit, and you need time. That's why not a lot of offensive linemen are traded during the season. You need time to develop the offensive line. You can't just plug in a guy, and it takes a while. But teams like the Chargers are we just had a lot of bad luck, and we feel like we're a good team. That can work, kind of like with the Bears as well. They have some problems on defense now with their pretty much number 2 pass rusher out until December. They can look for a guy like that. And then finally, I think that, what other team? Wait, I definitely had another team on this list. Oh, the Browns. The Browns were the big rumor. Yeah, they haven't really spent a lot of draft capital. They've used a lot of draft trades for later rounds. I think they can look to trade a number 2 or a number 1 even round pick for Trent Williams. And the Redskins are looking to reset. They're looking for a complete change overhaul when the new coach comes in, to have all these options of what he wants to do, and having more draft assets I think is going to be a good thing. So the next player that I think is going to be traded, or at least looked at for a trade, because why not, is David Johnson. Now, if you look at his stats, he's averaging about 50 yards a game, which is way less than what he's used to. He wanted to get 2,000 yards. He wanted 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards passing, receiving. He's not even close to that. He's getting 50 yards on the ground a game. And the Cardinals don't really use him because he's in the air raid. Teams that are going to be looking for him, again, the Bears are looking for a running back. I think David Montgomery is a little bit young. They could be looking for a guy like that. And as I was scrolling down, there aren't too many teams looking for a running back like David Johnson. You may say Matt Ryan for a guy to dump off to, but I think they believe in Freddie Freeman. I think he's doing a pretty good job there. everywhere else, teams are really good at running back. So the Cardinals are going to have a tough time trying to find that one team. Maybe you could say the Eagles, but then again, I think they're pretty good with running back this year with all the players they got, especially in the draft with Miles Sanders. And yeah, the Cardinals are going to have a tough time finding a suitor for this running back because a lot of contenders, they're not like, oh, we need a guy outside the backfield. You could say the Bills, too. The Bills I would have to include on this list because you do have Frank Gore, who's been pretty impressive, but he's old. You never know when he's going to go down. They have David Singletary, I believe, too. I could be wrong about that. And, they don't really have much a depth running back. And they're looking to make a playoff run, so look out for the Bills making a huge splash because they think they can make some noise this year, especially in the AFC East. If they can beat the Patriots one time, they have the division on a stronghold pretty much because the Patriots' schedule starts to heat up pretty soon, and they have to play the Eagles and the Cowboys too as well. So they're looking at like, okay, we already had our bye week. Let's try to get some momentum. Let's get a guy. Our offensive line is finally playing together. Let's do something. And finally, teams looking for wide receivers. I think the Colts are. Jacoby Brissett hasn't really utilized Eric Ebron a lot. And first of all, the wide receivers that are going to be out for sale, I would include A.J. Green, Michael Crabtree, who's signed and then released by the Arizona Cardinals. For whatever reason, I'm not really too keen on that situation. Then you also have Mohamed Sanu. You have Hooper on the Falcons. And yeah, those are the 5, I would say, main targets for getting somebody. You can mention some other players, but some teams that are going to be looking are the Patriots. Obviously, they're going to look to get AJ Green. You have the what other teams? Obviously the Colts, because I just mentioned them. Because Jacoby Brissett may need some targets. You have that offensive line, but now you need targets to actually throw to. Who would have thought? Like, you actually need wide receivers to throw to. I also include the Packers, who, even though they have Devontae Adams, Scatling, and the famous number 13, Aaron Rodgers didn't even know his name. Yeah, that could be an interesting get. And then the Lions, who also in that game were dropping so many passes. You do have Kenny Golladay. You do have Marvin Jones Jr. But if you have another receiving threat for Matt Stafford to throw to, I think this team could be good because they had a lot of drops that game. And then maybe the Bears. I feel like they're good. And again, wide receivers, it shouldn't take a long time for them to get the playbook. But yeah, here's some names you're just throwing out. And finally, the Seahawks. Russell Wilson's having an MVP year. I think around 60% of the people that you would ask right now would give Russell Wilson the MVP. He needs a target. He has DK Metcalf, but it hasn't really been that good for a while. And he may need a tight end. He may need that sort of target to go to. Maybe a Michael Crabtree, a trusted wide receiver. And now, Richard Sherman hated Crabtree. I'm not sure if there's still beef between him and the Seahawks, but they may look for a big splash. But the only problem is the Seahawks, they've already given up their first round pick next year for Jadeveon Clowney. So a lot of teams, if you look down the list, it's like, oh yeah, they've already made their huge splash, and that's what's changed really with the NFL. Teams make huge splashes. I don't think the 49ers are going to look for a huge wide receiver, even though I wouldn't be surprised if they go after, maybe sign Crabtree again, maybe go after a different player like A.J. Green, but I don't see that. I see them just doing the draft like normal and not trying to change anything up, kind of just trying to stay even-keeled. And, so that's it for my first story. That's my first storyline. My next storyline is the 49ers. A lot of them, a lot of people like me, I had them at 10-6 in the beginning of the season. I have $13 on them in total for $72 payout if they win the division. So I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for them all the way. But, they've pretty much haven't played great teams. But that's what I said about the Panthers in the beginning when they went 15-1 that one year and made it to the Super Bowl, even though they didn't win. But, I was like, I don't really trust their quarterback. I mean, they have a great coach, even though one's offensive-minded, one's defensive-minded. 49ers do have a great defensive-minded coach as well. But I was like, well, this team doesn't really look good. There were like 3 or 4 undefeated teams at the time through week 7 or 8. I was like, yeah, the Panthers are not going to make it. And then they kept on winning. They gained momentum. So I'm not ruling out the 49ers and doing really well, maybe even making the Super Bowl this year. But their schedule does heat up. I think we all know that. It gets harder. They played Tampa Bay. They played the Bengals. Even though they played the Rams, but the Rams aren't too hot right now. But they play the Seahawks twice. Their schedule starts to ramp up. And I'm excited to watch this team. Are they pretenders? I think Jimmy Garoppolo has to play with the lead. But all he does is win. There's something to be said about that. It's like now he's 14-2 on his career or something like that. I mean, if you win, you win. That doesn't mean you're a great quarterback, but if you win, I'm going to keep you in there. You're the hot hand, and he may gain some momentum as the season goes on, but once he starts throwing interceptions, and once he faces actually a good secondary, like maybe Jalen Ramsey with the Rams now, it's he may be able to pick Jimmy Garoppolo off. They haven't faced amazing secondaries like Buccaneers, Bengals, and they've only played 5 games so far, and they've already had their bye. So we'll see towards the end of the season whether they wear out. I mean, there are a lot of players like D Ford, Nick Bosa, who are injury prone, so there's a big question mark, but I am excited to see how they go. I had them at 8-8 on my final prediction, but all along I had them on like 10-6. I didn't have them more than that, but we'll see. This team's exciting. I mean, you play the teams that you play. You play the teams that you play, even though it's a cliche. If the team is worse than you beat them. It's good enough. And like if every other team just sucks and you're the best out of them, there's something to be said for that because you stayed consistent. And the luck has been on their side. I mean, they only had 2 interceptions last year. They've probably like tripled or quadrupled that already, and we'll see about that. So that was a quicker storyline. And my third storyline of the week, which one? I have a couple that I want to say. I'll mention this one briefly. Miami Dolphins are probably going to be on Hard Knocks next year, and they have a lot of parallels to the Raiders. You have the first-year head coach that was a star somewhere else for a long time. Well, you brought in a new coach, and then you have controversy at quarterback. Who do you pick? Is it Josh Rosen? Is it Ryan Fitzpatrick? But then you're planning on getting a new guy in. It's like a lot of chaos. Not similar to the Raiders, in fact. Very dissimilar, but I think that the Miami Dolphins are going to be a huge contender for Hard Knocks next year. So if anything, they're going to be on Hard Knocks. That's what they're going to try to win this year. Get Tua in the building, that sort of thing. So I'm very much looking forward to see if Miami Dolphins are going to be on Hard Knocks, and I'm interested about that. But that's not the storyline that I want to mention last. The last one I mentioned is the Texans. And now there's an ESPN story that just came out with DeAndre Hopkins and his mom, and I was like in tears reading it. It was an encapsulating story, so I'll link it below, hopefully. And I just want to say I was pretty rough on the Texans, but they went all in on this year. They got their left tackle, and now they sacrificed their mid-range future for their long-term future. They really did. Now, if Laremy Tunsil doesn't work out, he doesn't work out, but at least they're trying to get a left tackle. They learned from a lot of teams like the Colts, like maybe even the Titans. Well, actually, the Titans got the Conklin or whatever his name is, but they've learned. You gotta do all you can to protect. I don't care. You can always just half the league is undrafted free agents. You can always just bring those guys in, but all skill positions. There's gonna be a guy that breaks out. You just need to find him. And Bill O'Brien has done a good job. No management, no nothing. I didn't trust the no management thing, but this team looks like it has a little bit of mojo, and they may get some momentum together. They just beat the Chiefs. Now they moved to 4-2. They're the number 2 seed. And you look at the rest of this division, the Jaguars, I think, punted on this year. They traded Jalen Ramsey. I don't think that's completely punting on the year, but I think you guys get my drift. And you have the Colts, who can make some noise, but they have Jacoby Brissett. And then you also have the Titans, who are just, they're the Titans. And yeah, they have their own quarterback controversy. I was going to talk about the Mariota Winston thing, but the Texans are the greater story. I was really wrong. I don't want to say I'm wrong about them. I still feel like I was right. I was like, look at they don't have a great defense, but they just have a guy at quarterback, and they're finally protecting him. He's finally making his plays, and I'm happy for him. They made a lot of last line moves. I made my big bold prediction, and then it's like all of a sudden, they got this guy. They got Duke Johnson. It's a good story, and I'm certainly hopping off the Houston hate train. Not that I was ever on it, but that was like my bold prediction that they would only win like 5 games this year. They're already at 4 through 6 games, but I don't know. I'm like a loss for words about the Texans. I'm tiptoeing a little bit. So let's move on to the next part of the video, and yeah, let's move on. Okay, welcome to my power rankings, my hierarchy of the teams in the NFL, where, obviously, because this is the NFL show, what are my power rankings? So, basically, how I do these power rankings is, I just do the best 15 teams. I don't care about momentum. I just care about how good you're playing right, how good I think you are, and how much of a contender I think you are. So I'm ranking how much I think the team could win the Super Bowl as a contender, and how good of a team overall I think they are, with some caveats, and then I'll mention. So number one, the best team in the league, I have to give it to the 49ers. And you're probably like, Anthony, why not the Patriots? The Patriots haven't played anybody yet. I know I said before, you can only play on your schedule. It's the same thing I said with the 49ers. But the Patriots, they're going to have to rely solely on their defense. I don't say Tom Brady's bad. I didn't say Deshaun Watson was bad. I'm like, their surrounding pieces are bad. And I don't trust the Patriots right now. I have them at number 2. I'm not saying they're number 10. But, yeah, I just think that you can't win with no-name wide receivers. Even though Tom Brady's done it, but he's 42. Like, you're missing your kicker. You're missing your offensive line. Prove me wrong. Your defense can be locked down. Your defense may be locked down. But if your offense is generating turnovers, a lot of things like that, it doesn't really help the defense, and that's what they've been doing. They're trying to figure their things out by now. But I think the 49ers are the number one team because they have all the momentum behind them. They have a great defense now with their front seven. They could get injured, but right now they're not injured. They're healthy. They're making plays. They're getting the lucky bounce towards them, and that's why I think that the 49ers are better than the Patriots. Number 3. I have the New Orleans Saints. Now, in the beginning of the season, I said the Saints would make the playoffs and the Rams would not make the playoffs. I said of these two teams, I believe in the Saints a little more because of their roster. I think this front seven is amazing. I'm like, your defense is going to win you games as long as you have a somewhat competent quarterback, which Drew Brees is, which Teddy Bridgewater turned out to be. I just don't like Teddy Bridgewater. Never have, never will. Not because he's black. I'm not sure you assumed that because I was black. It's a tiptoeing thing. But, yeah, I mean, the Saints, pretty good corners, pretty good at the corner spot. I think they lost one of their corners for a game or two, but that's not really going to matter now. But Marcus Davenport, you have our Ingram. It's just, not Ingram. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track. But the secondary is good enough, and as long as you have a decent pass rush and decent momentum throughout the rest of the season, you're good. And they have a decent coach. I said decent. I don't think he's a top 5 coach, but yeah, I mean, with Drew Brees, I think this team struggles more than with Teddy Bridgewater. I think you need to keep the hot hand in, even though I don't think they will. But I keep the Saints at number 3 in my rankings. Number 4 is the Packers. Now, they don't have a lot of wide receivers. I think that they're going to try to change that. I think that they're going to go all in with this type of team. They have a decent offensive line. They have all the pieces that they may need to succeed besides the weapons. And I think down the stretch that hurts Aaron Rodgers. He's going to try to scramble and make plays, and the guys need to be open. And they may get like I talked about before, an experienced guy like Crabtree. So Crabtree kind of knows, like Larry Fitzgerald, he knows how to get open, and Kyler Murray, it's kind of a safety valve. You need Aaron Rodgers to click with somebody. And even though that guy's kind of Devontae Adams, but Jimmy Graham is struggling. And yeah, next team I just talked about is the Texans, number 5. Yeah, their defense is hard. I think the defense is a liability. But as long as Deshaun Watson can score more than the defense, I think they can be good. I think that their ceiling is the AFC Championship game, but they need to play at home. They cannot play away. They can't play on the road in a tough environment like the Chiefs. Even though they did it, it's October. It's not cold out yet. You haven't got frostbite yet. We'll see what they can do. They're a fast team. They're not really a big team. On defense, you could say they are with a couple guys. But, the Texans are number 5. Number 6 is the Chiefs. I have to respect the Chiefs a little bit. They're in their October struggles. It happens every single year. People jump off their bandwagon. And I'm just staying on it a little bit. You have a lot of guys coming back like Sammy Watkins. You just got Tyreek Hill back. They're missing their left tackle. I mean, come on. Their defense under Steve Spagnuolo. I've always been cautiously optimistic about Steve Spagnuolo, especially when he was with the Giants. It wasn't really Bob Sutton's fault last year. There's not a lot of talent on this defense. And they got rid of a lot of it too. But they just need to play prevent defense. They need to play a style of defense that fits the style of offense. And Patrick Mahomes needs to get healthy with that ankle. As much as you want to say, oh, he's playing bad. it's a little bit of the ankle, and then he doesn't really quite trust it, and that's leading to some inaccuracy. The Chiefs are number 6. Number 7 is the Bills. I can't have the Bills ahead of the Chiefs. Sorry, it's just one of those things. Colin had them ahead of the Chiefs. I'm like, you really think so? I mean, I trust the quarterback and Josh Allen to make an interception at the last play, but I still have number 7. It's not like it's just because I criticize the team doesn't mean I think they're trash. And they need a running back. They need, I think, a little bit more talent on the offensive side to help Josh Allen out. Their offensive line is good enough. Their offensive line is good enough. They're a unit. They're good. They're fine. Their defense is perfect. You did a really good job against the Patriots. Just stay healthy. You have talent. Matt Morales, Emmons. You have decent enough corners. Don't do anything to that defense. Sean McDermott's doing a great job. And the Bills, all you have to do is just keep pace with New England. Just try to what New England wins, you win. New England wins, you win. And by the end of the season, you're going to end up as a wild card, most likely facing the worst division leader, which is the worst division leader. It's probably going to be the Ravens. And yeah, I think you can beat the Ravens. So there's that. Next, number 8 on the list, I have the Colts, and then I have the Ravens, so it's right around there. The Colts are just all-around good team. I think they need more talent on the offensive side. I think they have the same problem as the Bills. You have a quarterback who's decent. He plays in a dome, which helps, but when you play outdoors, I'm not sure if I trust it. Josh Allen, I trusted more because he's played in my Wyoming, you know. But Jacoby Brissett, he plays in a dome. Are you going to be able to win on the road in cold weather? I don't know. They did, like the Texans, beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, but again, this team has a lot of talent. They haven't really stayed healthy so far. They haven't really put together a couple of good weeks in a row. So is this team fluky? Is this team great one week, sucks another week? We'll find out. I forget who they play this week, but I think, and I don't want to say who it is because I'm going to sound stupid. But they've had 2 weeks to prepare. We'll see how they are in this next 3 weeks, whether they are contenders or not. That's the beautiful thing about this. I can be wrong, and we'll see. And this is an ever-changing list, but my goal with this list is to be accurate in 3 weeks. That's my goal with it. My goal is to not have it change. My goal is not to have, the Steelers won, shoot them up to number 11 or number 10. You know, that's my goal. So yeah, rounding out the top 10 is the Bears. I've already talked about the Ravens, decent, but they just need secondary help, and Marcus Peters, I don't think, does it. I think that now they're starting to rely more and more on Lamar Jackson running, and long term, I don't think it's good for this team. The more he runs, the worse they are. It's kind of like reverting to old bad habits. You know, it's going to work for a couple weeks, you know, it's going to look great, and then eventually it's like, oh yeah, this didn't really work out. I think the more Lamar Jackson runs, the worse his teams end up being because they're not progressing in the right way. But running out the number 10 spot is the Bears. I still have to respect them top 10. I think because the Vikings are number 11. And I think the Bears head-to-head, they just have the Vikings number. I think when you play head-to-head, there's something about the Bears versus the Vikings where the Bears just always win. It's one of those things. Maybe we'll see about this week whether the Eagles and the Cowboys, whether the Eagles always choke against the Cowboys, that sort of thing. But I think the Bears have the Vikings number. Then I have the Seahawks. The Seahawks, they're great, but they have bad offensive line. And I think over time, we're going to see this problem more and more develop. I think that their defensive front is gaining a little bit of momentum. You know, they're getting healthy. But their corners are, I don't really trust their corners, to be totally honest. I don't really trust their secondary. They've gotten lit up by some teams this year, like the Browns. They got lit up by them. You could say, they had 3 interceptions, but really? Those were lucky. Those were bounces, and it's like, the guy was there at the right time. They're not playmakers on that secondary. I think that hurts them. You know, loss of Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, and a lot of those guys over the years are really making a problem in the secondary. Whereas the Bears are a more rounded secondary, I believe. And Mitch Trubisky, he's had a couple weeks off, and if he can stay healthy, just stay healthy. And if they should get Trent Williams, stay healthy. I know they traded the Khalil Mack pick, but Just stay healthy. Stop with all these dumb plays. And I think the more Mitch Trubisky sits on the bench, it could be like a Jimmy Garoppolo thing or a Carson Wentz thing, or Sam Darnold. That's the name I was looking for. Where they're learning the offense more and more. They're learning by doing, and then they sit back a couple weeks, and learn by doing, sit back a couple weeks. And I think just get right if you're the Bears. And I just don't trust the Vikings on game night situations. Kirk Cousins is Mike Rosario reported this, but Mike Florio, not Rosario. I don't know why I said Rosario, but it just sounded right. And so he said Kirk Cousins is a habits guy. He needs to do everything at the right time, on schedule. When things don't happen on the right schedule, remember they had a bad offensive line last year. When things don't happen on schedule, when there's a night game, it's like, oh, it's not a 1 o'clock game, things go to shit. But I still think they're Super Bowl contenders. And then rounding it out, I have the Lions, who I don't really trust in the playoffs. They have them at number 14. Yeah, 14. I don't really trust them in the playoffs because they haven't done it in, 60 years, pretty much. So, yeah, they haven't done much of anything. But I think the Lions are number 14. They need to work on their catching the ball ability, their run defense. I don't know what happened with Snacks Harrison, but they really need to work on that. Mike Daniels is injured, and you also have a bunch of other just nagging injuries on the defensive line that just get healthy, and eventually you have to win these games. You choked away. You should be 4-0-1, 4-1 right now. You should have won a game against the Cardinals. I'll give you one loss. There should be 4. They should be number 1 in the division right now, but they can't get over the hump. And Colin Cowherd made a good point. Eventually you have to win those games. And if you keep on losing them, the Bears, in the beginning, they had some fluky losses. They had the fluky loss against Miami, a fluky loss against Green Bay in the first week. But they won games. You can be a good team and not win games. And the 49ers, people say they're a bad team, but they win games. At the end of the day, you got to win. That's ultimately what solves things. And then, the Cowboys and Eagles, they've dropped off. Just a lot of talent. But, with the Eagles, consistency, can their guys catch the ball? Doug Peterson, he's is he a leader? Is he not? He's giving them signs, bulletin board material for their team, or for the Cowboys, and then, his team trying to motivate him. Last year, it doesn't feel real in a way. He's oh, yeah, we're the underdogs. I don't believe that. Maybe the team does, but I don't believe that. It's, kind of a weird leader there. And then Jason Garrett, the clapping man, they need to get rid of him. Come on. I know you can say who you're going to get. Anybody but Jason Garrett, that's who you can get. And I've talked about the Cowboys a lot. Ezekiel Elliott, the offensive line hasn't been really playing that well, and that's because they've been injured. And I think they're going to be good value, and especially if they lose this week, they're going to start being good value to pick for the NFC Championship. I don't think they will, but they may start being good value because they do play well towards the end of the season. You could say the Cowboys under Tony Romo choked a lot later in the season, but I think this Cowboys team can gain some momentum, especially in this division. They can potentially win it. Right now I'm going to have the rest of my team so you guys can see them at least, who I have. It gives me some credibility. The Rams, they're just a mess. I said that they have a Super Bowl hangover this year, and it's just the way it is. You thought that the Saints were unlucky, and now it looks like the Rams are that team. And the Raiders, I made a video about them, and imagine they had Antonio Brown, the sane Antonio Brown. I'm not sure if there is a version of him that's sane. And imagine if they did have Vontaze Perfect, and imagine, they would be, we'll see what they would have been. We'll see. It's only a couple weeks. This is just the early opinions. Now we can start forming our opinions, but there are a lot of teams that are low value right now that you can pick up. The Panthers, people are really high in the Panthers. No, I'm not buying them. It's a rookie quarterback. No team has ever been successful with a rookie quarterback. I just don't trust it. And I don't trust the Panthers. Sorry. I'll get more into that in future videos. I can't get into that all now. Because I did a lot of videos in the summer where it's just ranking this team, ranking that team. We'll talk all about them. But, do a video by video. I used to do all 32 teams in one video. I can't deep dive into any one team because I feel like the more I talk about them, the less time I have to talk to somebody else. And I did some deep dives for some particular teams. I'm gonna do I want to start doing those again. Some particular Panthers deep dive. Who do they have? Are they legit? Yeah, I'm not pretending to be some analytical guy, but let's give my opinion about it. Some a classic guy. People always hear the opinions about the analytical guys with, the cover 2 and that sort of thing. But, it's just a guy talking about sports. I don't really know a whole bunch, but we'll see. And I'm just keep on talking now so you guys can actually visualize and internalize the rest of my list. And there are no other teams that stand out. The Broncos, I feel like in a couple weeks they'll be a little bit higher on this list. It's just that the beginning of the season they couldn't really take control of their home field advantage. Their defense, I think, works together in cold weather. And Joe Flacco hasn't been playing bad. People have been trashing Flacco. he hasn't been playing bad. You know, you look at his stats, it's like, okay, he has fewer interceptions. He doesn't have a lot of touchdowns, but he's not turning the ball over. He's doing his job in this offense. And yeah, Vic Fangio needs to get used to being a defensive coordinator. He used to be up in the box, up where, he didn't get rained on. He wasn't on the field, but now he has to be a head coach. And we'll see how he does against the division rival this week against the Chiefs on prime time at Broncos. And if they win that game, they're one game behind the Chiefs, pretty much a half game behind the Chiefs for the division. So they see a future. And Bradley Chubb is hurt, but they weren't really getting a lot of pressure anyway with him. They're actually doing better without him. And yeah, we'll see how they do. I mean, they played the Chargers last week, whose offensive line is putrid. The Chiefs' offensive line is not much better, but yeah, that's it for my contenders and whatever. Hope you guys enjoyed this segment, and let's move on to the last segment, which is my bets of the week. Now, I haven't made them yet, so I'm going to record this a little bit later, so it doesn't really matter to you now that I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter because the video is going to come out when it does. It's not like the end part's going to attach. That would be a cool video concept, like a cool YouTube concept. You just add a part of the video later because you're not done with it yet. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. And yeah, just enjoy that segment, and yeah. And welcome to the bet segment. Now, the last time I did this, actually the first time I did this, I got a $1 parlay and I won $126 from it. So maybe just saying it on YouTube will help it come true. But I don't know. I have 3 different parlays that I had. And one of them, I realized that I made the wrong pick right after I did it. And I was kind of like, oh, no, I wish I could have that back. Can you give me my $1 back, please? I wish you can do that within, 10 seconds of doing it. It's like, oh, shit, I clicked the wrong button or something. But obviously, you can't do that. So the number 1 parlay play, I usually go for a long shot pick, because the last couple weeks you had the Colts win, you had the Jets win last week. There have been the underdogs. Jets were 3-1. The Colts were 4-1. I had them, and I like sprinkling them in with one of my parlays to exponentialize it. I'm like, yeah. But my pick this week is the Washington Redskins over the 49ers. In my first parlay, I had them just covering the spread, but I really do think that Washington can beat them because of the whole thing with the interim manager and overcoming. And I know they barely beat Miami last week, but it was an away game at Miami. They return home. In San Francisco, it just had 2 pretty big games. 2 pretty big games, one against the Browns, one against the Rams. They may catch themselves sleeping because I do think that next week they play Seattle. I'm not sure, but San Francisco has a tough schedule ahead. They may just pass on this game. The Washington Redskins are at home. The interim coach is just like, we're trying to win every single game here. They're trying to win, so they may catch the 49ers sleeping. They're 10.5 point underdogs, but my first parlay, I have the 49ers winning. I mean, the Washington Redskins covering the spread at 10.5. I think this is a good value. And I also have, I also took the over/under. I bet the under. And, I think in order for the Redskins to win, it's going to have to be a battle. Even though it's a plus 10.5 and then you take the over/under, it's kind of confusing. I don't know how that's going to work. But, 10.5. So, actually, no, that could work. If I took the 49ers covering the spread, that'd be, it's like 10 points, and then there are less combinations for, whatever. But basically, the 49ers are going to have to struggle against the Redskins' pass rush. The Redskins get a couple players back returning from injury, and it's going to have to be a low-scoring game. I think Case Keenum may play, but I think that Colt McCoy is the starting quarterback going to be this week. He hasn't really put up a lot of points. If he puts up 17, I can see the 49ers putting up 13. I can see the offensive struggles a little bit, especially with that porous offensive line. The Rams weren't really able to expose it last week. The Rams got no pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo at all. But they only scored 20 points last week, the 49ers. So, a little bit of offensive struggles. The Redskins just keep the ball, don't have a lot of turnovers, which they haven't really had. I mean, besides Dwayne Haskins, they haven't really had a lot of turnovers. The 49ers are good at causing turnovers this year, but they just got to hope and pray. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And, so my next bet, I really like the Ravens this week for some reason. I don't know why particularly, but I just think the Seahawks have won a couple of tight games. Browns, Rams, sorry. And then they barely won that Thursday night game. They won by 1 point. And it's just like, the Rams aren't that good. And I think the Ravens have been coming off a couple lackluster games. And the Ravens are a bad home team. They do a little bit better away. Vegas has it valued at about even. 3.5 is about what Seattle's home field advantage is. They say it's about 4, but Seattle hasn't really played that well at home of recent. So I think that the Ravens will be able to, expose the Rams, especially with their new cornerback, Marcus Peters. Cornerbacks don't really need to know the system that well. I think he can fit in. And if you just have him locked down man-on-man with one of Seattle's wide receivers, I think it can work. Pass rush doesn't have to be that good because Seattle doesn't really have a great offensive line. Lamar Jackson's going to run a lot, and I think he could do a good job. I think that especially with the Seattle's DBs, I don't really trust him this year, and the Ravens can make this a tight game. They just got to ball control, get out to an early lead, and I think that they can win this. So my bet is that the Ravens cover the 3.5 point spread. And so my next bet is Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them minus 3.5. The Bengals have an awful secondary. They have an awful offensive line. Jaguars are great offensive line. You can say they lost Jalen Ramsey, but no, I don't see it. So that's why I have the Jaguars winning by more than 3.5 points. Okay, this one I kind of regret. This is the one I regretted afterwards. I was like, oh no, I probably shouldn't have bet that. But they had some value. The Titans may get a spark with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. But, Chargers have to win some game, right? Like, you figure that, they lost to the Broncos. They lost to the Steelers. They got embarrassed. So maybe they turn it around and they just go guns blazing. Anthony Lynn is back against the wall a little bit. I think they're going to do some weird stuff. And they find a way to pull out this win. And then Miami Dolphins plus 17. I just like the number way too much. Ryan Fitzpatrick is back at quarterback. You could say it's going to be cold up in New York. But, I think that Miami, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he can work some magic, and they can cover a 17-point spread. I believe in them. And Josh Allen, I don't think he can put that many points up. Let's say he puts 20 points up, 24 points up. I think they can score 7, 10 at least. And I know you can say they've only averaged 8, but I think that the Miami Dolphins can cover this spread. And then finally, the Atlanta Falcons, plus 130. They're at home against the Rams. Or they're at the Rams. I forget which one it is. Dan Quinn is coaching for his life right now. The defense is awful. The Rams are probably going to try to expose it. And I think that Matt Ryan is just going to just fling it. It's back. It's one of those things. Them and the Rams are backs against the walls right now. And, 1-5. Do I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be 1-6? I really can't see that. That's why I have the Atlanta Falcons. And then here are my two other parlays. I really do like the Vikings because it feels like they always own the Lions. That's like how the Bears own the Vikings. I think that they own the Lions pretty much. And minus 125, I think the Lions can't stop the run and they can't rush the passer. And then Philadelphia, the amount of injuries on Dallas right now, I don't think it's going to do it. I'm taking them to win straight up. Even though the Eagles can't really defeat Dallas, and you can say they're going to expose them in the secondary. Well, Amari Cooper's hurt. A couple other players are dinged up. I think Michael Gallup is dinged up. Jason Witten's old. I think they can do it. And then Giants, Arizona, I have that over because I'm just like, well, Kyler Murray's going to be running around. He's going to be exposing our secondary, I think, with our slow linebackers. He's going to be running, and Daniel Jones is going to try to match him mano-a-mano. It's going to be a fun game. The 2 first quarterbacks taken in the draft. It's going to be one of those games where, it's just fireworks. I think that both teams easily go over, 25, 30 points. Actually, not 30, but, it's going to be guns a-blazing. I don't see how the defense has stopped these quarterbacks. James Betcher is from Arizona, but that's not really going to make a difference. I do have this last parlay play. And I have the Redskins to win overall on it, so this is my long shot. Texans, Colts, I have that over. Colts are coming off a bye. Texans are looking good on offense. They've been scoring a lot of points. They scored 31 against the Chiefs last week. They've been doing pretty well on offense, so I think that goes over. Kansas City Chiefs versus Broncos. They usually say don't bet the under, but I'm of the opinion okay, the Broncos are playing defense, and they haven't really let up a lot of points at home. And they're the number 7 ranked defense. They haven't let up a lot of points at home this year. The Chiefs are struggling on offense. They won't get Sammy Watkins back. And I'm of that mindset. Joe Flacco doesn't really score a lot of points either. So, yeah, this is going to be a 17-24 game. I think the Chiefs win it. And thank you for watching this episode or edition, whatever you want to call it, of Football Weekly Recap. Make sure to give it a like rating. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed, if you're not already. And yeah, see you guys in my next video. Today's a Wednesday. I'll probably try to have this up on a Thursday because there's a decent amount of editing that comes with this. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. And I won't hold you for any longer. Bye, guys.